During my husband's business trip, I returned to the hotel room for my wallet. I let our daughters open the door. He was naked in bed with my sister. That satisfying satisfaction you're waiting for? It came, but not the way you'd expect.
Before we continue, comment where you're watching from and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to see how far our stories are reaching.
The keycard beeped green. Grace, my 10-year-old, pushed the door open with both hands, excited because Daddy had promised her room service ice cream. Olivia, 14 and already suspicious of everything, hung back behind me. The curtains were drawn. The room smelled like the perfume I'd bought Brenda for Christmas. My husband's bare back was the first thing I saw. Then my sister's face, her eyes wide, her mouth forming my name but no sound coming out. Gary scrambled for the sheets. Brenda didn't move. I'd worked a double shift the night before. 12 hours in the ICU at St. Mary's, holding the hands of dying patients, calling families with news no one wants to hear. I'd driven 3 hours to Gatlinburg to surprise Gary on his sales conference. Our 20th wedding anniversary was next week. I'd booked the cabin where we'd honeymooned. The wallet was on the nightstand, right next to Brenda's bra. "Donna," Gary said. His voice cracked. "This isn't girls," I said. My voice came out steady, cold, like I was reading vitals to a doctor. "Look at your father. Look at your aunt. Remember this moment." Grace started crying. Olivia grabbed her hand and pulled her back into the hallway. I picked up my wallet. Brown leather, worn at the edges. Gary had given it to me 15 years ago, back when we still exchanged gifts. Inside, my nursing license, a photo of the girls as toddlers, $47 in cash. "Donna, please." Brenda sat up, clutching the sheet to her chest. She had the nerve to look hurt. "You don't understand. I understand everything. 20 years. I'd been married to Gary for 20 years. I'd known Brenda for 48. She was my baby sister, the one I'd protected from bullies in middle school, the one I'd paid for when she couldn't afford nursing school, $34,000 in loans I was still paying off, the one who called me crying after both her divorces, sleeping on my couch for months at a time. I walked to the door. "Where are you going?" Gary asked. "Home. We need to talk about this." I turned. Gary was standing now, the sheet wrapped around his waist like a toga. His belly hung over the fabric. When did he get so soft? When did I stop noticing? "No," I said. "We don't." The drive back to Knoxville took 4 hours. Grace fell asleep in the back seat, her face still wet with tears. Olivia sat in the passenger seat staring out the window. "Mom," she said, "somewhere around Sevierville." "Yes? How long do you think it's been going on?" I thought about Brenda at our house last Thanksgiving. How she'd stayed late to help Gary with the dishes. How I'd thought that was sweet. I thought about the weekend Gary went to Nashville for a training seminar, and Brenda had been conveniently visiting a friend there. I thought about all the times my sister had hugged my husband just a little too long. "I don't know," I said, "but I'm going to find out." Our house was dark when we pulled into the driveway. 1847 Maple Lane. We'd bought it 12 years ago when Gary's sales were good and my overtime was steady. 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, a mortgage payment of $1,847 a month. I knew every crack in the foundation, every squeaky floorboard, every spot where the roof leaked when it rained too hard. I carried Grace to her room. She was getting too big to carry, but I did it anyway. I tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and stood in the doorway watching her breathe. "Mom?" Olivia appeared behind me. "Are you okay?" "No." "What are you going to do?" I didn't answer. I walked to the master bedroom, the room I'd shared with Gary for 12 years, and opened his closet. His suits hung in a neat row. Navy, charcoal, black. I'd picked out most of them. I'd ironed the shirts. I'd matched the ties. At the back of the closet, behind a stack of old tax returns, I found a shoebox. Inside, credit card statements I'd never seen. A burner phone, receipts from restaurants I'd never been to, hotels I'd never stayed in, jewelry stores where I'd never shopped. A receipt from K Jewelers, $2,400, a tennis bracelet, dated 3 months ago. Brenda had been wearing a tennis bracelet at Easter dinner. She'd said she'd bought it for herself. A self-love present after her second divorce. I sat on the floor of my husband's closet, holding a receipt for a bracelet he'd bought my sister, and I didn't cry. I couldn't. The tears felt trapped somewhere deep inside my chest, frozen solid. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Brenda just called me. She's hysterical. What did you do to her? What did I do to her? I turned off my phone. The next morning, I called in sick for the first time in 8 years. I made breakfast for the girls. Scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice. Normal, safe. Grace asked if Daddy was coming home. Olivia told her to shut up. Don't talk to your sister like that, I said. She shouldn't ask stupid questions. It's not stupid. She's 10. The doorbell rang at 9:47 a.m. I knew it would be one of two people, Gary or my mother. I was hoping for Gary. I could deal with Gary. It was my mother, Ruth Hawkins, 76 years old, wearing her Sunday church dress on a Tuesday morning. Her gray hair was pinned back, her lipstick was perfect, and her eyes were full of righteous fury. "How dare you?" she said, before I could even open the screen door. "Good morning, Mother." "Don't you good morning me. Your sister called me at midnight sobbing. She said you walked in on her and Gary and you traumatized her." "I traumatized her?" "She made a mistake, Donna. People make mistakes. But you had to make a scene. You had to bring the children into it. You had to humiliate her." I looked at my mother, this woman who had raised me, this woman who had taught me to cook, to clean, to work hard, to never complain, this woman who had always preferred Brenda. "Mom," I said quietly, "Brenda was in bed with my husband. I know what she did, and it was wrong. But she's your sister. Family forgives family. And what about Gary? Does family forgive him too?" My mother waved her hand dismissively. "Men are weak. Everyone knows that. But sisters are supposed to protect each other. She wasn't protecting me when she was sleeping with my husband. You always were dramatic, Donna. Always making everything about you." Grace appeared in the hallway behind me. She was holding her stuffed rabbit, the one she'd had since she was 3. Her eyes were red. "Grandma?" she said. "Why was Aunt Brenda in Daddy's bed?" My mother's face went pale. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because how do you explain to a 10-year-old that the adults in her life are capable of such casual cruelty? The family meeting was my mother's idea. She called it a reconciliation dinner. She scheduled it for Sunday at her house, the same house where Brenda and I had grown up, where my father had died of a heart attack in the living room 12 years ago. I didn't want to go, but Olivia said we should. Let them show who they really are, Mom. Let them pick a side. Gary had been staying at the Comfort Inn on Kingston Pike. He texted me 17 times in 3 days. I didn't respond to any of them. His messages progressed from apologetic, "I'm so sorry, please let me explain," to angry, "You're being unreasonable," to desperate, "Please, Donna, think about the girls." I was thinking about the girls. That's all I'd been doing. My mother's house smelled like roast beef and betrayal. The dining room table was set for 7. Me, Gary, Brenda, my mother, and the girls, like a normal family dinner, like nothing had happened. Gary was already there when we arrived. He stood up when I walked in, like a gentleman, like he hadn't been naked in a hotel room with my sister 5 days ago. "Donna," he said, "thank you for coming." I didn't answer. I guided the girls to their seats and sat down between them, forming a barrier. Brenda wasn't there yet. My mother explained she was running late. I knew what that meant. She was waiting to make an entrance, to see which way the wind was blowing before she committed to a strategy. "Let's pray," my mother said. We bowed our heads. My mother thanked God for family, for forgiveness, for second chances. She asked him to soften hearts and heal wounds. She didn't mention the specific wound. She didn't mention who had caused it. Brenda arrived during the amen. She was wearing a white sundress like a bride. Her hair was freshly done. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like she was going to a garden party, not a family reckoning. "I'm sorry I'm late," she said, sliding into the chair across from me. Traffic was terrible. She didn't look at me. She looked at the roast beef. "Let's eat," my mother said. For 20 minutes we passed dishes and made small talk. My mother asked Olivia about school. Gary asked Grace about her soccer team. Brenda complimented the potatoes. No one mentioned the elephant in the room. No one mentioned the elephant in the hotel room. I ate in silence. I watched my family perform normalcy. I wondered how long they could keep it up. "So," my mother finally said, setting down her fork, "we need to discuss what happened." "What happened?" I repeated. "Yes, this situation. This unfortunate situation." "Unfortunate. Donna, please don't be difficult." "I'm not being difficult. I'm just trying to understand. My husband slept with my sister. And you're calling it unfortunate? Like a flat tire? Like a rainy vacation?" Brenda looked up. Her eyes were wet, perfectly timed. "Donna, I never meant to hurt you." "Then what did you mean to do?" "It just happened. Gary and I, we have a connection. We've always had a connection. I tried to fight it. I really did. For how long?" "What? How long have you been sleeping with my husband?" Silence. Gary stared at his plate. Brenda looked at my mother for help. "That's not relevant," my mother said. "It's relevant to me. What's relevant is how we move forward, as a family." I laughed. I actually laughed. It came out harsh and bitter and not at all like me. "Move forward? You want me to move forward? My sister has been sleeping with my husband. For how long, Brenda? A month? A year? 5 years? 3 years," Olivia said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. My 14-year-old daughter, sitting with her hands folded on the table, her face completely calm. "What?" Gary's voice cracked. 3 years. I checked your phone, Dad. While you were in the shower last Christmas. I saw the texts. I didn't tell Mom because I thought maybe I was wrong. But I wasn't wrong. "Olivia," Gary started. "Don't talk to me. I don't want to hear your voice." Grace started crying. "Why is everyone fighting? I don't understand." I put my arm around her. "It's okay, honey. It's going to be okay." "But Daddy and Aunt Brenda, I know. My mother stood up. "This is exactly what I wanted to avoid. All this ugliness, all this anger." She pointed at me. "You did this, Donna. You brought the children into it. You made them witnesses. You couldn't just handle it like an adult." "Handle it like an adult?" "Mother, my husband has been cheating on me with my sister for 3 years. 3 years. While I worked double shifts to pay our mortgage. While I took care of our children. While I paid off Brenda's student loans. 3 years. Marriages have problems. Every marriage has problems. Maybe if you'd paid more attention to Gary." "Are you seriously blaming me?" "I'm saying there are 2 sides to every story." I looked at my mother. At this woman I'd spent my whole life trying to please. This woman who had made me feel, from the very beginning, that I was never quite good enough, that Brenda was the pretty one, the charming one, the favorite one. "No," I said. "There's one side. Gary broke his vows. Brenda betrayed her sister. Those are facts. And you," I pointed at my mother, "you're defending them. Because you've always loved her more than me." "That's not true." "It is true. It's always been true. Brenda gets whatever she wants. Brenda makes mistakes and gets forgiven. I work myself to death and I still don't measure up." "You're being dramatic." "Am I? When Dad died, who sat with you for 2 weeks straight? Who took unpaid leave to help you sort through his things? Who found the lawyer for the will? And who showed up for the funeral and left the next day? Brenda. But you still think she's the good daughter?" My mother's face hardened. "You've always been jealous of her." "Jealous? Of what? Her 2 failed marriages? Her inability to hold a job? The way she seduces her sister's husband? That's enough." Gary slammed his hand on the table. "Donna, this isn't helping. We need to talk. Just you and me. Without all this drama." "Drama? You want to talk about drama? You were sleeping with my sister, Gary, in a hotel room I was paying for. On a trip I thought was for our anniversary. What part of that is drama?" He had no answer. I stood up. Girls were leaving. "Donna, please." Brenda reached across the table. "I'm sorry. I really am. Can't we just—" "We can't. I paid $34,000 for your nursing degree. I let you stay in my house for 8 months after your second divorce. I defended you to everyone who said you were irresponsible. And this is how you repay me. I walked to the door. Olivia and Grace followed. My mother called after me. Donna, if you walk out that door, you're tearing this family apart. I stopped. I turned. I looked at my mother, my husband, my sister, the people who were supposed to love me, the people who had betrayed me in the most intimate way possible. No, Mother, I said. They already did that. I'm just refusing to pretend it didn't happen. I walked out. The screen door slammed behind me. In the car, Grace asked, Mommy, are we ever going to see Grandma again? I didn't know the answer. I didn't know anything anymore. We'll see, baby, I said. We'll see. The next morning, I found an envelope in my mailbox. Inside, a handwritten note from my mother. You always were difficult, Donna, from the day you were born. Some people are just too proud to accept love. I read it twice. Then I put it in a drawer. Some wounds you don't heal. You just learn to carry them. 2 weeks after the dinner at my mother's house, I found the plane tickets. I wasn't snooping. I was cleaning. Gary had been served with divorce papers 3 days earlier. He'd moved out of the Comfort Inn and into Brenda's apartment, which told me everything I needed to know. And I was reclaiming my house. Our house. The house I'd paid for with 12-hour shifts and missed weekends and sacrifices I'd stopped counting. The filing cabinet in the basement was mine now. Everything was mine now. I was sorting through old tax returns, medical records, the girls' school projects from elementary school, normal things, boring things, evidence of a life I'd thought was real. The manila envelope was tucked behind a stack of 2019 W-2s. It wasn't labeled. I almost threw it away. Inside, 2 plane tickets to Miami. One way, departing November 15th, 3 weeks from now. Gary Mitchell, Brenda Hawkins. The tickets had been purchased 6 months ago. Long before I'd walked into that hotel room. Long before Gary knew he was caught. They were going to leave. They were going to leave me. I sat on the basement floor, surrounded by boxes of my daughter's artwork and my husband's betrayal. And I tried to understand what I was looking at. 6 months. They had planned this 6 months ago, while I was working doubles during the COVID surge, while I was holding dying patients' hands and calling their families, while I was coming home exhausted and finding Brenda in my kitchen, helping Gary with dinner. They were going to leave. They were going to take my money, the joint account, the savings I'd built, the retirement fund I'd contributed to for 18 years, and they were going to disappear. And I never would have known. If I hadn't forgotten my wallet, if I hadn't let the girls open that door, I would have come home one day to an empty house and a note. I started laughing, then crying, then something in between. Olivia found me an hour later. She didn't ask questions. She just sat down next to me and read the tickets. They were going to run away, she said. Yes, like teenagers. Yes, with your money. Yes. She put the tickets back in the envelope. We need to show this to the lawyer. I know. And we need to find out what else they were planning. I looked at my daughter. This 14-year-old who had somehow become the adult in the room. Olivia, you shouldn't have to deal with this. I know, but I'm dealing with it anyway. She stood up. I'm going to check Dad's email again. He never changed the password. That's not... I shouldn't let you do that. Do you want to know the truth or do you want to protect me from it? I didn't answer. She went upstairs. 20 minutes later, she came back with a printout. 6 pages of emails between Gary and Brenda. 3 years of messages. 3 years of lies. I read them all. She's too tired to notice. Brenda, February 2021. I told her I had a conference in Atlanta. She believed me. She always believes me. Gary, June 2021. I feel bad sometimes, but then I remember how she treats me, like I'm still a child. Brenda, September 2021. Once we're in Miami, everything will be different. We'll start fresh. She'll never find us. Gary, May 2023. She'll never suspect. She's too busy working. Brenda, June 2023. The last one hit the hardest. She's too busy working, too busy paying for everything, too busy keeping the family afloat while her husband and sister planned their escape. I put the papers down. My hands were shaking. "There's more," Olivia said quietly. "More?" Dad moved $45,000 into an account Brenda set up 6 months ago, the same time he bought the tickets. $45,000. Our savings. The money I'd put aside for the girls' college. The money I'd earned with double shifts and holiday coverage and being away from my family for nights at a time. "How do you know this?" "I found the statements in his email. He scanned them to send to Brenda." "Why would he do that?" "Because he's stupid. Because he thought you'd never look. Because he thought he'd be in Miami before you noticed." I closed my eyes. I thought about all the times Gary had told me not to worry about the finances. "I'll handle it," he'd say. "You work too hard already. Let me take care of the money stuff." And I'd believed him, because I was tired, because I trusted him, because I thought that's what marriage was. "Mom?" Olivia's voice was gentle. "Are you okay?" "No." "What are you going to do?" I opened my eyes. I looked at my daughter, this smart, fierce girl who had somehow seen through her father's lies when I couldn't. "I'm going to make sure they don't get away with it." The next morning, I called my lawyer. His name was Thomas Reed, and he charged $350 an hour, which I couldn't afford. But I couldn't afford not to hire him either. "This is good," he said, when I showed him the tickets, the emails, the bank statements. "This shows premeditation. This shows intent to defraud." "What does that mean for me?" "It means you're not just getting a divorce. You're getting everything." I didn't smile. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired of fighting, tired of discovering new betrayals, tired of being the one who had to hold everything together while everyone else tore it apart. "There's something else," Thomas said. "The money he moved to Brenda's account? We can go after that. She's not an innocent party. In Tennessee, we can sue for alienation of affection." "Sue my sister?" "She participated in the fraud. She benefited from it. She knew he was married. She helped him plan to abandon you and your children." I thought about Brenda, my baby sister, the one I'd protected my whole life. The one who had repaid that protection by sleeping in my bed while I was at work. "Do it," I said. That night, I sat alone in my kitchen. The house was quiet. The girls were asleep. Gary's chair at the table was empty. It would always be empty now. I poured myself a glass of wine, the first alcohol I'd had in months, and I read through the emails again. All 3 years of them. All the jokes about how clueless I was. All the plans for their future together. All the contempt they had for me, hidden behind smiles and hugs and "I love you, sis." One email stood out. From Brenda to Gary, dated last Christmas Eve. She gave me that perfume again. The same one every year. She has no idea who I really am. Never has. Never will. I had given her that perfume because she'd mentioned she liked it. I had spent $85 on it, more than I usually spent on gifts. I had wrapped it carefully and watched her open it and felt happy when she smiled. She had been laughing at me. They both had. I finished my wine. I rinsed the glass. I put it in the dishwasher. Then I went upstairs and looked in the mirror. Donna Mitchell, 54 years old, 20 years married, a nurse who had saved more lives than she could count. "They thought you were weak," I said to my reflection. They were wrong. The locksmith arrived at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. His name was Earl, and he'd been changing locks in Knoxville for 32 years. "Divorce?" he asked, unscrewing the deadbolt on my front door. "Is it that obvious? I do about 4 of these a week. It's always the same. Someone cheats, someone changes the locks." He held up a shiny new key. "Schlage B60N, bump-proof, pick-resistant. Your husband won't be getting in here without a battering ram." "He's not my husband anymore." "Good for you." I paid Earl $247 in cash. He gave me 4 copies of the new key. One for me, one for Olivia, one for Grace. One hidden under the fake rock by the garden. The same fake rock where I'd hidden the old key. The key Gary had used to come and go as he pleased for 12 years. No more. The credit cards were next. I'd already frozen the joint accounts. Thomas had helped me do that on day 1. But there were still cards in Gary's name that I was liable for. Discover, Visa. A store card at Best Buy he'd opened without telling me. I called each one. I recited my social security number, verified my address, explained that I was removing my husband as an authorized user. The customer service representatives were professional, efficient, indifferent. They'd heard this story 1,000 times. "Is there anything else I can help you with today, Mrs. Mitchell?" "It's Ms.," I said. "And no, that's everything." Gary found out about the locks the same day. He showed up at 6:30 p.m. while I was making dinner. I heard his key scrape against the new deadbolt, the familiar sound of home, now foreign and wrong. Then the doorbell. "Donna," he was shouting through the door. "Donna, what the hell? Let me in." I kept stirring the pasta. "Donna, this is my house." "You can't lock me out of my own house." Olivia appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Should I call the police?" "Not yet. Let's see what he does." The doorbell rang again. Then again. Then a pounding that shook the windows. "I know you're in there. I see your car. This is ridiculous." I turned off the stove. I walked to the front door. I didn't open it. "Go away, Gary. I just want to talk." "Then talk to my lawyer." "Your lawyer? Jesus, Donna, we're married. We can work this out. We're getting divorced. The papers were delivered last week. You signed them." "I signed under duress. You blindsided me." I almost laughed. Blindsided. He'd been planning to run away to Miami with my sister. He'd stolen $45,000 from our savings. And he felt blindsided. "Gary," I said, keeping my voice calm, "if you don't leave in the next 60 seconds, I'm calling the police. And I'm telling them about the restraining order I'm filing tomorrow." Silence. Then, "Restraining order? Donna, come on. This is crazy. 50 seconds. I just want to see my kids." "Your kids don't want to see you. Olivia told me what she found in your email. She knows about Miami. She knows about the money." More silence. I could picture him on the other side of the door, calculating, figuring out what he could still salvage. "Donna." His voice changed. Softer now, pleading. "Baby, please, I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But we can get past this. 20 years. Doesn't that mean anything?" "It meant everything to me. It meant nothing to you." "That's not fair." "Fair?" I opened the door then. Just a crack, just enough to see his face. Pathetic, desperate, already rehearsing his next lie. "You want to talk about fair? I worked 12-hour shifts so you could have a comfortable life. I paid for your suits, your car, your golf clubs. I paid for Brenda's education. And the whole time, you were laughing at me. Both of you, planning your escape, taking my money. Fair doesn't enter into it, Gary. You lost the right to fair when you climbed into bed with my sister." His face crumpled. For a moment, just a moment, I felt something. Not forgiveness, not love, just the memory of the man I'd married. The man who had carried me over the threshold of this house. The man who had cried when Olivia was born. That man was gone. Maybe he'd never existed. "Your bags are in the garage," I said. "Take what's yours. Leave what's mine." "And Gary?" I waited until he looked at me. "Brenda can have you. She can't have my money." I closed the door. For 10 minutes, I heard him moving around in the garage, boxes being shifted, the trunk of his car opening and closing, then the engine starting. Then nothing. I sat down at the kitchen table. My hands were shaking, but I was smiling. "Mom?" Olivia was standing in the doorway again. That was badass. Language. Sorry, but it was. Grace came downstairs. "Was that Daddy?" "Yes, honey." "Why didn't he come in?" "Because he doesn't live here anymore." Grace's face crumpled. She was 10. She didn't understand betrayal or infidelity or the calculated cruelty of adults. She just knew her daddy was gone. I held her. I let her cry. I didn't have any words that would make it better. Later that night, after the girls were asleep, I poured myself another glass of wine and looked at the documents Thomas had prepared. The divorce petition. The motion for exclusive use of the marital home. The lawsuit against Brenda for alienation of affection. $45,000 in stolen savings. 3 years of lies. A lifetime of sisterhood, burned to ashes. I signed everything. The next morning, I went back to work. First shift at St. Mary's in 3 weeks. My colleagues asked if I was okay. I said yes. They didn't believe me, but they didn't push. I checked vitals. I administered medications. I comforted families. I did my job. At lunch, I got a text from an unknown number. "This is Brenda. Please don't hang up. I need to explain." I didn't respond. Another text. "I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But please, Donna, we're sisters. We can get through this." I put my phone in my locker. Another text, waiting when I checked at the end of my shift. "Mom is sick. She didn't want you to know. But I thought you should. It's her heart." I read it 3 times. My mother, 76 years old, the woman who had taken Brenda's side, the woman who had blamed me for my own husband's affair. My mother was sick. I drove home. I made dinner. I helped Grace with her homework. I watched TV with Olivia. Normal things. Safe things. At 10:00 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "Donna?" It was my mother's voice, weak and thin. "Donna? I'm in the hospital. I need you." I closed my eyes. I thought about everything she'd said to me. Every accusation, every defense of Brenda, every time she'd made me feel like I was the problem. "I'll be there in the morning," I said. "Thank you, baby. Thank you." I hung up. I sat in the dark. Family is complicated. That's what people say. It's supposed to explain everything. The betrayals, the favoritism, the wounds that never heal. But some things can't be explained. Some things can only be survived. My mother died on a Thursday, November 9th, 2 weeks before Gary and Brenda were supposed to fly to Miami. The hospital called at 3:17 a.m. I was already awake. I'd been awake most nights since the hotel room, and I answered on the first ring. "Mrs. Mitchell, this is St. Mary's. Your mother, Ruth Hawkins, passed away at 3:04 a.m. We're very sorry for your loss." I'd worked at St. Mary's for 18 years. I knew the night nurses who'd been with her. I knew the chaplain who'd said the prayers. I knew the exact room where she'd taken her last breath, room 412, cardiac wing, the same room where I'd lost patients of my own. I didn't cry. I got dressed. I woke the girls. I drove to the hospital. Brenda was already there. She was sitting in the waiting room, mascara smeared down her cheeks, holding a tissue in one hand and her phone in the other, texting. Even now she was texting. "Donna." She stood up when she saw me. "Donna, I'm so sorry." I walked past her. I went to room 412. I looked at my mother's body, small and still under the white sheet, machines silent, monitors dark. "Can I have a minute?" I asked the nurse. She nodded and left. I sat in the chair next to the bed. The same chair I'd sat in with 100 other families. The same words I'd said 100 times. "Take all the time you need." "Mom," I said quietly, "I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if any of this matters now, but I need you to know something." I paused, swallowed. "I tried. My whole life I tried to make you proud. I worked hard. I followed the rules. I took care of everyone. And it was never enough. Brenda got your love. I got your expectations." The monitor beeped once. A glitch. Nothing more. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just tired. Tired of trying to earn something that should have been given freely. Tired of competing with a sister who never played fair. I stood up. I touched my mother's hand, cold now, the warmth already fading. "I forgive you," I said. "Not because you deserve it, because I need to let it go." I walked out. Brenda was waiting in the hallway. "Donna, please, can we talk?" "Not now." "When? When can we talk? You won't answer my calls. You won't respond to my texts. I'm losing everything." "You're losing everything?" I turned to face her. "You slept with my husband for 3 years. You stole $45,000 from my savings. You were going to fly to Miami and leave me with nothing. And you're losing everything?" "I made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill. A mistake is missing a deadline. What you did was deliberate, calculated, cruel." Brenda's face crumpled. "I loved him. I know that doesn't make it right, but I loved him. I've always loved him." "Always? You've always loved my husband?" "Since your wedding day. I saw you walking down the aisle and I thought, she doesn't deserve him. She's too cold, too practical, too focused on work. I stared at her. My baby sister. The one I'd protected all those years. The one I'd paid for. The one I'd trusted. And what about me? I asked. Did you ever think about what I deserved? You have everything, Donna. The career, the kids, the house, the perfect life. I have nothing. You have nothing because you've never worked for anything. You've never sacrificed. You've never put anyone else first. Everything you have, someone gave to you, and you still wanted more. Brenda wiped her eyes. I know I hurt you. I know there's no excuse. But Mom is dead, and I don't want to lose my sister too. You lost me 3 years ago. You just didn't know it yet. I walked away. I heard Brenda calling after me, but I didn't turn back. The funeral was 4 days later. A small church in South Knoxville, the same church where my parents had been married 53 years ago. The same church where my father's funeral had been held 12 years earlier. I sat in the front pew with Olivia and Grace. Gary was there. I couldn't legally keep him from attending, but he sat in the back, alone. Brenda was on the other side of the aisle, surrounded by cousins and aunts who hadn't spoken to me since the divorce was filed. The minister talked about Ruth's life, her devotion to her family, her love for her daughters, her faith in God. He didn't mention the favoritism, the cruelty, the way she'd blamed me for my husband's affair. I didn't expect him to. That's not what funerals are for. After the service, people lined up to pay their respects. I stood at the casket, accepting condolences, shaking hands, saying, "Thank you," over and over, until the words lost all meaning. Brenda approached. She was wearing black, of course. She looked beautiful, as always. Even in grief, she knew how to command a room. "Donna," she said, "I want to say something. In front of everyone." The room went quiet. People turned to watch. "I'm sorry," Brenda said. Her voice was clear, steady, rehearsed. "I made a terrible mistake. I hurt my sister in the worst way possible, and I will regret it for the rest of my life." She paused, looked around the room, made sure everyone was watching. "But Mom wanted us to be a family. That was her last wish. She told me in the hospital. She said, 'Take care of each other,' and I want to honor that wish." She reached for my hand. I stepped back. "Mom's last wish," I said, "was for me to come to the hospital, so she wouldn't be alone when she died." "And where were you, Brenda, when I got there?" "You were in the waiting room, texting." The room was silent. "You weren't with her when she died. You weren't holding her hand. You were on your phone, probably texting Gary, telling him what a tragedy this was, figuring out how to use Mom's death to manipulate me into forgiving you." Brenda's face went red. "That's not... I was the one who sat with her. I was the one who heard her last breath. I was the one who called the nurse. You showed up after it was over, and you've been performing grief ever since." "Donna, please. I'm done. I'm done pretending we're a family. I'm done pretending that blood means loyalty. You made your choice 3 years ago. You chose Gary. You chose money. You chose yourself. And now you get to live with that." I turned to the room, to the cousins and aunts and neighbors who had come to judge me. My mother wasn't perfect, neither am I. But I never betrayed my sister. I never stole from my family. I never lied for 3 years and then asked for forgiveness at a funeral. I looked at Gary, sitting in the back pew trying to disappear. "And you," I said, "you don't get to mourn. You don't get to be here. You gave up that right when you chose her." I walked out. Olivia and Grace followed. In the car, Grace asked, "Mommy, was that wrong? What you said?" I thought about it. The anger, the truth, the spectacle. "No, baby," I said. "Sometimes the truth is uncomfortable, but it's still the truth." Olivia nodded. "I'm proud of you, Mom." For the first time since the hotel room, I felt something close to peace. 1 year later, I got a letter from Gary. I recognized the handwriting immediately, the cramped, hurried scrawl he'd used on birthday cards and grocery lists for 20 years. The return address was unfamiliar. 847 Maple Grove Trailer Park, Lot 23, Sevierville, TN, a trailer park. Gary Mitchell, who had worn $400 suits and driven a leased BMW, was living in a trailer park. I didn't open the letter right away. I set it on the kitchen counter and made dinner. Grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, brown rice. Healthy, practical. The kind of meal I'd always wanted to make but never had time for when I was working doubles and keeping a marriage afloat. Olivia came in first. 15 now, taller than me, her hair cut short in a style she'd chosen herself. She'd started therapy 6 months ago, and it was helping. She smiled more. She argued less. She'd stopped checking her father's email. "What's that?" she asked, pointing at the letter. "Mail from your father. Are you going to open it?" Eventually, Grace came in next. 11 years old, still carrying her stuffed rabbit everywhere, but growing up faster than I'd like. She'd struggled more than Olivia. Nightmares, anxiety, a fear of hotel rooms that we were still working through. But she was getting better. We all were. "Is that from Dad?" Grace asked. "Yes. What does it say?" "I don't know yet. We ate dinner together. We talked about school, about Olivia's college plans, about the movie Grace wanted to see that weekend. Normal things, good things, the kind of things I'd imagined when I first became a mother, before everything got complicated. After dinner, after homework, after Grace was asleep and Olivia was reading in her room, I finally opened the letter. "Dear Donna, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I destroyed our family. I know there's nothing I can say that will make it right. But I need you to know, I'm sorry. Truly sorry. Not just for getting caught, for all of it. For the lies. For the betrayal. For the years I wasted chasing something that was never worth having. Brenda and I didn't last. We made it 2 months before she found someone else. A guy from the trailer park, if you can believe it. Younger. Dumber. I think she just wanted to hurt me the way I hurt you. I lost everything. The job. They found out about the money I moved, and I was fired for cause. The savings, gone, mostly to lawyers. The BMW, repossessed. I'm working at a tire shop now. $15 an hour, no benefits. It's honest work, I guess. More honest than anything I did before. I'm not asking you to take me back. I'm not asking for money. I just want you to know that I understand now. I understand what I threw away. You were a good wife, Donna. A good mother. A good person. I was too stupid and selfish to see it. I hope you're happy. I hope the girls are okay. I hope someday, maybe, you can think of me without anger. That's probably too much to hope for. But I'm hoping anyway. Gary." I read the letter twice. Then I folded it carefully, put it back in the envelope, and dropped it in the trash. The next morning, I went to work. Mary's hospital, cardiac wing, but a different role now. 3 months ago, I'd been promoted to shift supervisor. More responsibility. Better hours. A salary that let me breathe for the first time in years. My colleagues had watched me go through the divorce, the funeral, the rebuilding. They'd covered my shifts when I needed time off. They'd brought me casseroles and sent me cards. They'd treated me like family, the real kind, not the kind that betrays you. Donna, one of the newer nurses, a young woman named Amy, appeared in my doorway. "There's someone in the waiting room asking for you. Says she's your sister." My stomach dropped. "Tell her I'm busy." "She says it's important. She says she just wants 5 minutes." I closed my eyes, counted to 10, made a decision. Send her in. Brenda looked different. Older, thinner. Her hair was longer, grayer at the roots. She was wearing jeans and a sweater, normal clothes, not the designer outfits she used to favor. She looked like someone who had finally stopped performing. Donna. She stood in my doorway, not quite daring to enter. "Thank you for seeing me. You have 5 minutes." She nodded. Took a breath. "I'm not here to apologize. I know apologies don't mean anything anymore. I'm here because..." She paused, looked at the floor. "I'm moving. To California. A friend has a job for me there. And I wanted to see you before I left." "Why?" "Because you're my sister. Because even after everything, I still..." She stopped, shook her head. "I don't know. I don't know why. I just needed to." I looked at her. This woman I'd known my whole life. This woman who had betrayed me in the worst way possible. This woman who had never, not once, taken responsibility for her choices. Brenda, I said, I'm not going to forgive you. I'm not going to wish you well. I'm not going to pretend that what you did was okay, or understandable, or forgivable. Her face crumpled. But, I continued, I'm also not going to hate you anymore. It takes too much energy. And I have better things to do with my life. She looked up. What does that mean? It means you can go to California. You can start over. You can build whatever kind of life you want. And I'll do the same here, separately, without you. So this is goodbye? It's been goodbye for a year. You're just catching up. She nodded slowly. I deserve that. Yes, you do. She turned to leave. At the door, she paused. For what it's worth, she said, you were always the better one. Mom knew it too. That's why she was so hard on you. She knew you could take it. Then she was gone. I sat at my desk for a long time after that, thinking about my mother, about Gary, about Brenda, about all the ways families can wound each other, and all the ways we survive. That evening, I picked up Grace from soccer practice. She was sweaty and happy, chattering about a goal she'd almost scored. In the car, she asked if we could get ice cream. I said yes. At home, Olivia was waiting with news. She'd been accepted to UT Knoxville. Early admission. A scholarship that would cover most of her tuition. Mom! She was actually jumping up and down. I got in! I actually got in! I hugged her. I told her I was proud. I didn't cry, but it was close. Later, after ice cream and celebration and the normal chaos of a Tuesday night, I stood in my kitchen alone. The house was quiet. The girls were asleep. On the refrigerator, held up by a magnet shaped like Tennessee, was a school essay Grace had written last week. The assignment was to describe someone you admire. My mom is the strongest person I know. Last year, some really bad things happened to our family, but my mom didn't give up. She kept working. She kept taking care of us. She kept being brave, even when it was hard. Some people think being strong means never crying. But my mom cries sometimes, and she's still the strongest person I know, because she cries, and then she gets up, and then she keeps going. I want to be like her when I grow up. I read it 3 times, and then finally, I let myself cry. Not tears of anger, not tears of grief, tears of something else. Something that felt like relief, and gratitude, and the first faint stirring of joy. I had lost my husband. I had lost my sister. I had lost my mother. But I had kept my daughters. I had kept my home. I had kept myself. And that, in the end, was enough.